So let us go into the next type of loop, which is the Sentinel control loop. Alright, it says here Sentinel control loop is used when the number of repetition is not known in advance. So this means that it is a complete opposite of a counter loop, where a counter loop is when we know when to stop. So Sentinel control loop is when we don't know when to stop. So for example, let's say the program asks the user to input a number. Okay, so if the user wants to stop, the user can put in 999. So if the user enters 3, then the program will still continue. If the user enters 55, then the program still continues. But if the user enters 999, that is when the program will stop the loop. Okay, so we know that with Sentinel control loop, we must have a Sentinel value which allows the program to actually stop. Okay, so we provide some sort of a condition. So if the user enters that value, then the looping will stop. Okay, so this is what it means by a Sentinel control loop, because we don't know how many times we want to repeat. So depending on what the user enters, okay, the repetition will stop at that particular value. All right. So another example, repeat a process as long as the user input Y. So you can ask, do you want to continue? So if the user enters Y, it will keep repeating. It will keep repeating until the user enters a value that is not Y. You know what I mean? Okay. So when it comes to Sentinel control loop, again, any repetition that we do, we must have these 3 things. First of all, we must initialize our control variable. Second, we must evaluate our control variable against a loop condition. And lastly, we must update the control variable. So with counter loop, when we update, we either increment or decrement, right? By using plus plus or minus minus and things like that. But when it comes to Sentinel loop, we don't use that. We use input from the user as our update. Okay? Because with Sentinel loop, okay, the decision to either continue the repetition or not will depend on the user. So if the user enters Y, which means yes, it wants to continue. Okay? And that is how the loop will be updated. So if the user enters no, meaning that the loop will stop. So our update will depend on the value given by the user. Okay, so let's take a look at the first example here. It says write a program that will calculate the total and average of scores. The amount of scores will be determined by the user, where the user will enter 0 to stop entering score. So if we analyze this particular question, we will notice that just from this question alone, we can figure out whether to use either a Sentinel loop or a counter control loop. Okay, as we all know, there's a clear difference between the two. Okay, when we have a counter loop, it is when we know when to stop. Whereas if we use a Sentinel loop, okay, we don't know when to stop. So whenever you come across a question, please analyze the question first, whether it is a counter loop or is it a Sentinel loop. So if we take a look at this question, it says that the amount of scores will be determined by the user, where the user will enter 0 to stop entering score. So the programmer does not know when the looping will stop, because this all depends on the user. If the user, for example, in this question, if the user enters 0, then we will know the user wants to stop at this point. Okay, so since we don't know when to stop, we're going to be using a Sentinel loop. Okay, like I said before, in our previous lectures, we knew that counter loop, we can use 3 control structures. We can use while. Okay, we can use while. We can use do while. Okay, and we can also use for. So for a counter loop, it is best that we use for. But with Sentinel loop, okay, there is only 2 types of structure which we can use, which is while and do while. Okay, do not use for this one. You cannot use for. Cannot. All right, either while or do while. But for me, if you ask me, the best structure to use is actually do while. It is easier for you to use do while with Sentinel loop. Okay, but I will teach you both how to use both for Sentinel loop, but it is best that you use a DoWhile loop. Okay, so let's continue by answering this question. Okay, so let us try and solve this problem using the first type of loop, which is a while loop. Okay, and then I'll show you how to do how to solve this problem using a DoWhile loop instead. All right, so first of all right, when you see this kind of question, the first thing that you want to do is you want to do the loop structure first, then you decide what you want to repeat and so on. Okay, so in this case, what we want to use right now is we want to use a while loop, and we have determined that this will be a Sentinel loop. Okay, so inside this while loop is whatever that you want to repeat, so anything you want to repeat. Okay, so like I said, when it comes to a loop, either it's counter loop or a Sentinel loop, both of those type of loop need these three things, which are we need the initialization, then we also need to evaluate, and lastly we need to update. Okay, so first of all, we need to decide what is the okay, when it comes to Sentinel loop, it is best that you decide the condition first, the evaluate. Okay, so you decide the evaluate or the condition, evaluate or condition. Okay, so what should we put inside here? Because we know this is a Sentinel loop. All right, we must know when we must know how to stop the loop. Okay, so how to stop will depend on the user. So for that question, we know that the user want to stop when the user enters 0. Okay, so in this case, anything that you want to repeat is whatever that you place inside here, right? Okay, so the first thing that we want to repeat is we want to repeat the enter score. So we write here enter score 0 to stop. Okay, so that's the first thing, and then we have cin, and then we have score. All right, so we know that this thing is what we want to repeat, and this statement, also the score, will also determine by the user whether the user want to stop or not. If the user enters 0, okay, then it will stop. If the user enters score that is not 0, meaning that the looping will keep on continuing. All right, so just from this, we know that the thing that is inside here will depend on the score. Okay, because this will depend on what the user enters. So our control loop will depend on the score, not control loop, control variable. Okay, so this control variable will be score. Okay, so what do we write here? We know that we want to repeat as long as the user does not enter 0. So as soon as the user enters 0, then it will stop. So the condition here is as long as the score is not 0, then it will repeat. Okay, so in this evaluate or the condition, we must provide the Sentinel value, which is what is the value that the user will enter for it to stop, for the loop to stop. Okay, so in this case, the score, if the user enters 0, it will stop. So anything that is not 0 will be repeated. Okay, all right, so since we have done our evaluate, so this is our evaluate, the second thing we want to do is, okay, so that's the first step, we evaluate. The second step is we want to decide what is the initialize. Okay, because with a while loop, it is important that we do the initialization. Okay, so initialize. Okay, what is the purpose of initialize? So that we can enter the loop. Okay, without initialize, you can't enter the loop, because right now, if you take a look here, score, what is score? Because score comes from inside here, but when the program runs, okay, it will execute from the top to the bottom, so we can't enter this first. So what we need to do is we need to initialize it so that the score, the evaluation, can be entered inside here. All right, so let us declare score in score. So the value that I want to write is anything that is other than 0. So you can write 1, you can write 2, you can write 1000, you can write 500, it doesn't matter as long as it is not 0. If you write 0, it is wrong, because if score is 0, you cannot enter here. Okay, so it needs to be other than 0. So let's say I just write 1. Okay, so if score is 1, so you will check here. Since score is 1 not equal to 0? Yes, then it will enter. So no matter what value you put here, it doesn't matter, because the score that is provided by the user or input by the user will replace this value right here. Okay, all right, so that is our initialize. And then lastly, before we go back, okay, we need an update. In this case, okay, the update will depend on the user as well. So we know that actually, all right, the update will come from the input. So this is our update. Number 3, this is our update. So you have evaluate, you have initialize, and you have update. So this is the only thing that you need for a Sentinel loop. Okay, so after we've done that, okay, we figured out how to repeat things. Okay, then we need to know the process. So the question says the amount of scores will be determined by the user. Okay, we've done that. Okay, but this program needs for us to calculate the total and average of score. Okay, like I've said, if you want to total up something, in this case you want to total up the score, so all you need to do is just use the formula total equals to total plus what. In this case, you want to calculate the score, so you just write total equals to total plus score. Again, you need to initialize the total, so in this case total is integer, so total equals to 0. Okay, then we got the total for the score. All right, so lastly is we need to calculate the average. Okay, as we all know, we don't need to calculate the average inside here, okay, because the average only needs to be calculated once, okay, because it depends on the total and how many scores that you enter. Okay, so you write here average equals to total divided by what. So in this case, we know that to calculate the average, we need to know how many numbers that the user enters. Okay, but since this is a Sentinel loop, we don't know, right, how many numbers that the user will enter. So what we need to do is we need to count. All right, so we need to count how many scores the user enters. Okay, so how to do that? Okay, we just plus 1. Let's say whenever the user enters a score, let's say they put in 100 here. Okay, we know that. Okay, right now, since the user have put in 1 score, so we just plus 1. Okay, so let's say I just write here count plus plus. Okay, so if I do this to count, I use this to count, I also need to initialize this. So what is the first value you want to start with? Let's say I start with 0. Okay, since we're not counting anything yet, so we start with 0. But as soon as the user enters the input, okay, it will be updated to 1. The count will be updated to 1. Okay, so when it goes up and up and up and up, depending on how many that the user enters, so the count will help us to decide, okay, help us to calculate how many scores that the user enters. All right, so what we need to do is just write here count. Okay, so average equals to total divided by count. So let us try and check if this is correct. Okay, so let's say the first one, okay, score equals to 1. Okay, is 1 not equal to 0? Yes, so it will enter this. So see in score, let's say right now the user enters 2. Okay, so that is our first value, 2. Okay, then total equals to total plus score. So you know that 2 plus score, which is, total is right now is 0. So plus 2, we will get 2. Okay, so right now total will be 2, and we need to count. So our count from 0, it will be 1. Okay, so then it will go back up. All right, so it will ask is score, which is 2, not equal to 0? Yes, so it will enter this. So see in score, so let's say I put in the next number, which is 5. All right, so total equals to total plus score, so we know that total is 2 plus the new score, which is 5, we will get 7. Okay, then this will be updated to 2. okay, then it will go back up. Okay, can this enter? Yes, because 5 right now, the score right now is not yet 0, so it enters. So from 5 it inputs the next number, which is 10. Okay, so total equal total plus score, so total is 7 plus 10, then we will get 17. Okay, then count plus plus, so this will be 3. Okay, and then it will go back up, okay, enter score 0 to stop. So since we entered 10, so it is still not stopping, so suddenly the user wants to stop, so it will enter 0. Okay, so we enter 0, total equals to total plus score, so 17 plus score, which is 0, it will still be 17. Okay, so this will be updated to 4. Okay, now then it will go back up. So is score not equals to 0? Since score right now is 0, is 0 not equals to 0? So that is false. Okay, so meaning that the looping will stop. So it will go to the next line, which is calculating the average. So average equals to total. Okay, total is 17 divided by 4. Is that correct? That is not correct. Why is that? Because right now the numbers that we need to calculate is 2, 5, and 10. Okay, 0 is not included because 0 is the value that we want it to stop. Okay, so the total number that the user enters, or the total score that user enters, is actually 3. So how do we convert from 4 to 3? So meaning that there is an extra step here. So all we need to do is just do this, count minus 1. Okay, so from 4 it will be 3. So 17 over 3. Okay, so we will get our average. Okay, so since, if you notice that, please remember, if we divide integer by integer, we will not get a decimal value. So we can convert one of those values to a floating point. So we write here total float. So we'll just convert total from integer to a float. Okay, so we write here float average because we want the answer to be in float. Okay, so lastly is just see out total is okay, total and L, and then see out average is, then we have average and L. Okay, and that is how we solve this question. Okay, okay, so using the same solution, let us try to use a do-while loop instead. Okay, so if you use a do-while loop, in my opinion, using a do-while loop is the best control structure, repetition control structure that you can use because it is the most easiest. Okay, because with Sentinel loop, okay, you don't know when to stop, so we can just ask for the input first and then we'll loop it back. Okay, you will see why this is easier. Okay, so let us try to use a do-while loop. Okay, with a do-while loop you have do, and then in the end you will have a while and then a semicolon. Okay, so here you will place your condition, your evaluate or your condition. Okay, and then okay, inside here is what you want to repeat, Okay, so in this case, what did we want to repeat here? We wanted to repeat the enter score. So we write here enter score 0 to stop. Okay, and then we write cn score. Okay, so we know that, okay, the score will depend on what the user enters. Okay, so this condition will depend on the score that the user input here. Okay, so as long as the user does not input in 0, we can always repeat this loop. Okay, so score not equals to 0, the same thing as we were using the while loop. Okay, now the thing that's a little bit different here is with a do while loop you do not need an initialize. Okay, you don't have to write initialize here. Why? because we are doing it first. With a while loop, you have to initialize because the condition is at the top. In order for us to go inside, we need to check the condition. But with a DoWhile loop, since we don't have a condition at the top, we can always just ask the user for the number first. Then from this score, we will evaluate. Okay, ready? Okay, did you get it? Okay, so we just need the evaluate or the condition. There's no need for initialization. So what is the update? Okay, the update of course will depend on what the user enters, so it depends on this. Okay, so this is our update. Okay, so that is done. So 1, 2. The thing that's missing here is initialize. You don't need that. All right, so that's why do while is easier. So once we got our score, the thing that we need to calculate is total. So total equals to total plus score. Okay, so let us declare this. So int score, so we don't need to initialize that. Okay, we need to do total equals to 0 because this is a formula for that. Okay, and then next thing is we want to calculate the average. So to calculate the average, we can just write it down here because we don't need to calculate a lot of times. So average equals to total divided by what? Okay, again, we need to know how many times we want to calculate. So this will be calculated using our variable called count. You can name this any variable that you want. Okay, so we'll start count with 0. Count equals to 0. Okay, so all we need to do is just write here total divided by count. So let us check whether our program here is correct or not. Okay, so let us try and put in, let's say int score total equals 0, count equals to 0. So in score, since there's no condition, we'll do the looping first. So do, so what did the user enters? Let's say the user enters 2. Okay, if the user enters the value 2, okay, so total equals to total plus score. So from 0, which is total, so 0 plus score, which is 2, we will get 2. Okay, and then count plus plus, so from 0 it will be 1. Okay, then it will check is score that the user enters, which is 2, is it not equal to 0? Yes, so we will loop it back again. So it will enter the next number, which is 5. Okay, so total equals to total plus score, so 2 plus 5 we will get 7. Okay, count plus plus, then we will get here 2. All right, so score not equals to 0. Is 5 not equal to 0? Yes, so we will continue back again. So it will enter the next number, which is 10. Okay, so total equals to total plus score, 7 plus 10, we will get 17. Okay, then count plus plus, so this will be 3. Okay, so is score not equal to 0? Yes, so 10 is not equal to 0, go back up, so then we will get which is the next number, 0. So since the user enters 0 here, meaning that it wants to stop, so total equals to total plus score, 17 plus 0 we will get 17. Okay, count plus plus, we will get 4. Okay, so since 0 not equals to 0, okay, since 0 is actually equal to 0, so this will stop here. Okay, so average equals to total divided by count. So since there are 3 numbers, not 4, we need to change this to count minus 1. Okay, so our average is float. Okay, we also need to change one of this to a floating point. Okay, and then in the end, all we need to do is just display this cout total is, oops, total, and then cout average is average. Okay, and that is how we solve the problem using a do-while loop. Like I said, if you compare between while and do-while, it is easier for you to use a do-while loop. Okay, and that is how you solve this problem. Okay, so inside your program, okay, whenever you have a loop, okay, inside your loop, you can actually include a break statement, okay? A break statement will cause an immediate exit from the enclosing loop, meaning that, let's say if you meet this break statement, okay, and then when the program executes this break statement, it will actually exit the loop. Instead of going back, okay, okay, it will actually exit the loop. So this is what break does, all right? So let's take a look at this example right here and try and trace the program so that you'll understand this a little bit better, okay? So for x equals to 1, okay, let's say we start with x equals to 1. Is x less than equals to 10? Yes, so it will go inside. If x equals to 5, is x equals to 5 right now? No, so it will display x. So this will be our output, okay, it will display x, so x is 1, okay, and then we have a space, and then it goes back up, x plus plus, this now becomes 2, okay, and then is 2 less than equals to 10? Yes, it will go inside. That it will check this if x equals to 5, no, so it will display x, so it will display 2, okay, and then it will go back up, x plus plus is become 3 is also less than 10, so is this true? No, it will display x is become 3, and then it will go back up, x plus plus, it becomes 4, is 4 less than 10? Yes, it will go inside, so if it's not true, so see out x, it will display 4, okay, and then suddenly it will go back up, x plus plus then now becomes 5, is 5 less than 10? Yes, then it will meet this if, okay, if x equals to 5, so 5 is equals to 5, then it will meet the break, okay, so when it meet the break, instead of going back up, it will go outside and exit the loop, so it will stop at 4, okay, then it will display the loop terminated at x is, so it will go here, the loop terminated at x equals to, so we have x which is 5, okay, so the output is 1 2 3 4, the loop terminated at x equals to 5. So this is the answer for this program. So you will notice that whenever we have a break, it will actually exit the loop. Please remember that is for break statement, okay? Okay, so now let's take a look at a continue statement. Previously, we talked about a break statement. A continue statement, instead of, okay, with a break, okay, you exit the loop, right? But with a continue, okay, you don't exit the loop, but what you will do is you will go back up, okay? Meaning that the current loop will be skipped and by proceeding with the next loop, okay? So, with a continue statement, with a break, it will go back down, all right, and exit the loop. But this does not apply for continue. With continue, instead of going out, it will go back up to the condition and it will evaluate the condition back again. Okay, so let's take a look at this example so that you can understand this better. Okay, so for x equals to 1, let's start with x equals to 1. Is 1 less than 10? Yes, it will go in here. Is x equals to 5? No. So meaning that this goes to continue if it meets 5. So since that's not true, so see out x. So you have your output. Okay, so x is 1 and then you have a space. Go back up, then you have 2. Plus, it becomes 2. Is 2 less than 10? Yes, then this is still not true, so see out x, so this will be 2, and then go back up, x plus plus, 3, is 3 less than 10? Yes, okay, then go back inside, is this true? No, see out x, okay, then it will go back up, x plus plus, this becomes 4, is 4 less than 10? True, it goes inside. Is this true? No, so see out x, it becomes 4, and then it goes back up, x plus plus, this becomes 5. Okay, so is 5 less than 10? Yes, so now you will notice that x is equals to 5, so that is true, so it meets continue. So it meets continue, instead of it's going out, it will go back up, moving on to the next loop. Okay, so then it will read this x plus plus, so this now becomes 6. Okay, so is 6 less than 10? Okay, yes, so it will go inside. Okay, if x equals to 5, no, so it will go to 6. Okay, then you go back up again, x plus plus becomes 7. Is 7 less than 10? Yes, so 7 here. So, and then go back up again, x plus plus becomes 8. Okay, so it will keep doing this, 8, 9 until 10, because we stop at 10. Okay, so then it will display. Okay, once it's finished, it will go back down. All right, then continue statement, it will write here continue statement. okay, causes x equals to 5 not printed. Okay, basically you will notice that with the break statement it will exit the loop. With the continue statement it will move on to the next loop. Okay, so that's the difference between a break and a continue. Okay, so let's try and take a look at this question here. Okay, given this program, it says, what is wrong with this source code? How can you fix this problem? So in order for us to figure out what is wrong with this code, I don't think there's a syntax error here, so probably there's a logic error. So if you want to check if there's a logic error inside here, you need to trace your program. Okay, so let's trace the program first. So int number sum equals to 0, so you know that we will have a variable called number and we have a variable called sum. Okay, so sum is equals to 0. Okay, then you have a do, meaning that it will go inside. Enter a number, enter -1 to stop. So you know that based on based on the user, okay, the user will enter the number, any number, so it will keep repeating until it reaches -1. Okay, so in number, let's say the user put in 10. Okay, so sum equals to sum plus number, so you know that sum is 0. 0 plus 10 will be 10, so it will store it inside sum, so sum will now be 10. Okay, so while number not equals to -1, okay, so it will check, is this number equals to -1? No, so since no, it will go back up. Okay, enter a number, enter -1 to stop. Let's say the user enters 20. Okay, sum equals to sum plus number, so sum is 10 plus number, which is 20, so it will be 30. 30 will be stored inside sum. Okay, sum will be now be 30. Okay, so go down here, while number not equals to -1. Okay, so is this number 20 equals to -1? And now it will go back up. See in number, let's say now the user wants to stop. Okay, let's say the user enters -1. So when it enters -1, you know that the looping will need to stop. Okay, so sum equals to sum plus number. But now take a look here, because the user enters -1 here, okay, there's a process underneath here. Sum equals to sum plus number. Currently, the number that was received is 10 and 20. So logically, the sum should be 30. So this is correct. But since the user enters -1 to stop, okay, the sum is now affected. Okay, sum equals to sum plus number. So 30 plus, which is the number -1. So instead of this, sum becomes 30. It will now becomes 29. Now, this is actually wrong because 10 plus 20 should be 30 and not equals to 29. Okay, so this will stop the loop. All right, so the sum is, so the answer would be the sum is 29. Okay, so that is wrong. What we need to do is we need to change this to 30 instead. So how can we fix this problem? So think about it. How can we fix this problem? Okay, so let's decide that. Okay, so if we take a look here, okay, the error actually occurs here. Okay, because we need to calculate the sum, but the sum actually receives the -1 from the user, so this number will be affected. Okay, from here to here. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to actually place something here so that we can give a condition whereby if the user enters -1, we will not do this process. Now, what did we cover earlier? We have break and we also have continue. Okay, we have break and we also have continue. Which one do you want to use? Okay, is it break or continue? Break will exit the loop, whereas continue will go back up. So we know that if the user enters -1, we want to stop everything. So meaning that we don't want to do this at the bottom. So we're going to be using a break. Okay, if a continue, it will go back up. So we don't want it to loop back again. So we will use a break. So what we need to write here, okay, so instead of okay, after the line C out, C in number, okay, over here, all right, you need to write if number, you will check if the number that the user enters if it is equals to -1. You know that -1 will stop, right? Okay, so if number equals to -1, we will place here break. Okay, so what happens is that, let's say the user enters -1. Is number, which is -1, equals to -1? Yes, so it will meet break. So if it meet break, it will actually skip this line here and go back outside the loop. Okay, so it will skip this sum equals to sum plus number, so it will not -1 here. Okay, instead, okay, it will break, then the sum is actually 30 instead of 29. Okay, so that's what you can do using a break if you want to stop something completely. All right, so that is how you fix this problem. Alright, so for this next question, it says write a program that will allow users to guess my date of birth. Alright, suppose that my date of birth is 21st of May 1994. Alright, so the program should read the date of birth guessed by the user. Right, the program should let the user guess the date of birth until he or she gets it right. So what we're doing is we're trying to validating the input. Okay, so again, when we do this kind of program, okay, we need to again. Alright, so the question says write a program that will allow users to guess my date of birth. Suppose that my date of birth is 21st of May 1994. So the program should read the date of birth guessed by the user. The program should let the user guess the date of birth until he or she gets it right. So from this question, we know that this is not a counter loop, okay, because we don't know when the looping will stop. Okay, so the loop will depend on what the user enters. So if the user enters the wrong date of birth, it will keep repeating itself. Okay, once the user enters the right date of birth, then we will stop. Okay, so to do a Sentinel loop, we can either use a while or a do while. For me, I prefer to use a do while. So let's try to use a do while. Okay, so when you do a do while, do, okay, so whatever you want to repeat, you put it inside here, and then you will have your while and your condition inside here. Okay, so what we want to do is, the thing that we want to repeat is we want to repeat enter date of birth in the format of DDMMYY. So we write C out, okay, enter date of birth in the format of DDMMYYY. Okay, so then we need to get an input. So C in, let's say DOB, which is my date of birth, and let's say I'll do this as string. Okay, string date of birth. Why I put string? Because it has slash and has numbers, so those are characters. Okay, so C in date of birth. So we know that this thing, okay, this is our update. Okay, this is our evaluate. Okay, we don't need an initialize for do while, only while we need that. All right, so with the do while, we only update and evaluate. So what do we put in here? We want to repeat, keep repeating this until the user gets it right. So okay, let's say our date of birth, okay, as long as the user and doesn't enter the right date of birth, which is 21/05/1994. Okay, as soon as the user enters this, we will stop the loop. Okay, so this is our Sentinel value. All right, so what do you want to do with that? Okay, as soon as the user enters the right one, we're going to stop the loop. Okay, so this is how we do it. All right, but if the user enters the wrong date of birth, okay, we want to display the error message. Okay, so we write here if the user enters the wrong date of birth, okay, if the date of birth does not equals to 21/05/1994. Okay, so what you want to do with that? Okay, we want to display C out Wrong guess. Please try again. Wrong guess. Please try again. Okay, so we're gonna do that. So if the user enters the wrong date of birth, let's say they just put gibberish inside here, so it does not equal to this, it will display wrong guess, please try again. All right, so it will check, okay, for the date of birth. Okay, then it will, if it's not the same, then of course it will repeat it back. Okay, so this will keep repeating until, let's say, the user enters the correct one. Okay, so if it enters the correct one, this will not be executed, then it will stop the loop. Okay, so if it's correct, we're gonna say C out. All right, well done, your guess is correct. Okay, and then gonna say C out my date of birth. Okay, if you notice that I'm kind of like typing the same thing over and over again. To make it easier, okay, you can do my DOB equals to 21/05/1994. Okay, so instead of typing the same thing over and over again, just replace this with my DOB. Okay, then this is also my DOB. Okay, and then we just write here my date of birth is my DOB. All right, so basically this is how we solve this problem. Okay, moving on to the next type of loop. This is called a nested loop. All right, just like a nested if, where we have an if inside another if. So if we call a nested loop a loop, meaning that inside a loop there can be another loop. Okay, so we'll have an inner loop and also an outer loop. All right, so I'm going to show you an example how a nested loop works. Okay, so let's try to take a look at this question right here. What will be the output displayed on the screen for the program above? Okay, so let's try to do this. Okay, so first of all, we're gonna take a look at the first loop. So this is the outer loop, so we do this one first. Okay, so for int I equals to 1, so we will have our I. Okay, I is equals to 1. So is 1 less than equals to 3? Yes, true, so it will go inside. Then it will meet this for. Okay, so for int j equals to 1, so we will have a j. Okay, I and a j, so j is equals to 1. So j less than equals to I. Is 1 less than equals to 1? True. So if it's true, it will go inside. So notice that we don't have a curly braces. Since there's no curly braces, meaning that this for will support only one line. Okay, so since 1 is less than equals to 1, so that is true, will go inside. So C out star, so we will have our output, so it will display star. Okay, so it will not go down here. What we need to do is we need to finish the loop until it is false. Okay, then we can only move on. All right, so j less than equals to I, so since that is true, we'll display the star, so then it goes back up to j plus plus. So j plus plus now becomes 2. Okay, so 2, then we check the condition. Is 2 less than equals to 1? That is false, so that is when we stop the loop. Okay, do not quit your loop before it is false. Okay, do not quit your loop before it is false. So when it reaches false, okay, only then you can quit your loop. Okay, so let's continue this back again. All right, all right, so since j is 2, so we can't enter that, so C out and L, so then it will move on to the next line, which is a new line. So wherever it is, we will display it on a new line after that. Okay, so then it will go back up. All right, it will go back up. Since we've done that, it go back up, so it will update the I. So I plus plus now becomes 2. Okay, so it will check, is 2 less than equals to 3? Yes. So we will go back inside and we will meet this looping again, this inner loop. Now, do we continue from here? No. Okay, we start from the top because when we enter, it resets. So j equals to 1. We meet this again. Okay, because the previous loop that we've done before, it has finished. Okay, so we start a new loop again. So j equals to 1. So j less than equals to I is 1 less than equals to true. So it will C out star. So it will C out star. Okay, and then we'll go back up, j plus plus, so now it becomes 2. Okay, is 2 less than equals to 2? True. So if it's true, it will display another star. Okay, so then it will go back up, j plus plus, it now becomes 3. Okay, so check, the condition is 3 less than equals to 2. False. So if it's false, then you stop the loop. Okay, so then it will move on to the next line. So C out and L, so it will move on to the next line. Okay, it goes back up, so I plus plus, so I now becomes 3. Okay, so is 3 less than equals to 3? True. So it goes back inside. All right, so we meet the loop again. So j equals to 1. All right, is 1 less than equals to 3? This is your I. Yes. So C out star, we will display a star here. Okay, then j plus plus, it now becomes 2. All right, so is 2 less than equals to 3? True. So it will display the star again. Okay, then it will go back up, j plus plus, it becomes 3. Okay, is 3 less than equals to 3? True. So it will display another star. Okay, so it goes back up, j plus plus now becomes 4. Okay, is 4 less than equals to 3? So now this is false. So it will stop. So it will stop, move on to the next line, C out and L. Okay, then it will go back up. So when it goes back up, okay, I plus plus now becomes 4. Okay, is 4 less than equals to 3? False. So meaning that this loop is also false. So we will stop this loop. So there's nothing inside there. Okay, afterwards. So that is the end. So we know that the output for this program is star. Then you have next line star star, next line star star star. So this is how you do a nested loop, meaning that whenever you write a program, okay, you can actually develop a program where you have a loop, and inside there you can have another loop. That is possible. Okay, so the first one that we need to do is the one for the students. Okay, we need to figure out how to repeat this program for 3 students. So we're going to use a for loop, since that is for the counter loop. Okay, so we're at for int I equals to 0. Okay, let's say we start with 0. So if we want to repeat this 3 times for 3 students, okay, I do I less than 3. Okay, so how do we get from 0 to 3? We do I plus plus. So this will repeat, okay, for 3 students. Okay, so we know that for each student, we're gonna have to take 4 scores. So meaning that we need to repeat again. Okay, so kind of imagine that for each I that you do is for each student. Okay, so inside here we're going to do another for loop, okay, because we want to repeat this 4 times. So choose another variable. Okay, use another variable. Let's say I do j, for in j equals to, let's say 0. Okay, so if you want to repeat this 4 times, you write j less than 4. Okay, so how do you get from 0 to 4? We do j plus plus. Okay, so we will repeat for 4 marks, okay, for each student. All right, so meaning that you will have an outer loop, okay, for each student, and for each student there we're going to be taking 4 scores. Okay, so to get the 4 scores or the 4 marks, okay, so we need to repeat this in here. Okay, C out, enter, mark. Okay, and then C in, mark. Okay, so we need to declare. Okay, make sure you declare it outside your loop. Never declare inside a loop. So int mark. Okay, so that's how we get the mark from the user. So this will be repeated 4 times. So this thing will be repeated 3 times based on the students. Okay, so what we want to do with those marks, we want to calculate the total. So inside this, for every mark that you receive, you're going to calculate it. Okay, so total equals to total plus mark. Okay, so we're gonna declare that total equals to 0. So that is how we calculate the total for each of the marks. Okay, so another thing that we need to do is we need to calculate the average mark. So to calculate the average mark, we need to figure out how many marks there are. Okay, so total marks, okay, which we got it from here. So since we need to get the average, we need to calculate how many marks that was entered by the user. So we know that there are 3 students, and for each student there are 4 marks. So 4, 8, 12. So there will be 12 marks that was entered by the user. So we can just do average equals to, okay, total divided by 12.0. We can just immediately state this here because we already know how many marks that will be entered by the user, because these are counter loops. But if you're working with Sentinel loop, then you need to figure out how many marks that are entered by the user. So you need to count it. Okay, so in the end, all you need to do is just see out, okay, the total marks for all students is, okay, so we got this from total, okay, and then see out the average mark is, okay, we got that from average. Okay, so last thing we need to do is just declare our average. All right, and that is how we solve this problem.